Today, I just want to do a quick video to make sure you're across a new feature that's just been released in NotebookLM, and that is their new infographic feature. Now, I really like this feature, and it's for two primary reasons. One, because I'm very much a visual learner, and two, because I think using this infographic tool, it can easily process very complex information and simplify it and pull out trends and actually create a story or a narrative. And for those of us that have learnt about learning styles and how our memory works, using storytelling in our learning is going to help you remember more in your exams and be able to retrieve that information during your exams. So let's go. Just jumping to the home page of NotebookLM. If you haven't used it before, it is free with a Google account. So to access NotebookLM, just go up to the top right-hand corner on the 9 dots and just scroll down to the bottom and you'll see the app available down the bottom. So I'm not going to create a new notebook. Please see my other videos if you want to see that process. So for my examples today, we're just going to be looking at my infographic that I created that's sitting in this notebook here and also in this notebook here. This one here is based on a famous Australian case of Mallard against the Queen. It's often covered in criminal law subjects and also evidence law subjects as well. It's probably one of our most famous miscarriage of justice cases. I'm just going to open up this example. And over here on the left-hand side, as I said, I've already uploaded the sources into this left panel. So I've already uploaded the case document. So here's the judgment down here. And I've also uploaded a speech by Justice Kirby from our High Court in Australia. Let's go now and have a look at a couple of the infographics. So over here on the right, this is where you can see the new infographic feature. They've also released a slide deck feature, which is pretty amazing as well, but I might do a separate video about that at another time. But today we'll just look at the infographic. To generate it, all you need to do is just make sure you've selected your sources over here and then click on the infographic tile here and it will generate your infographic and then you can open it up here. But before you do that, you do have the option to go to this pencil icon. There is some default settings here for you, but what you can do is change some of these settings. I'll just leave this on standard, which is what I did yesterday when I created this, and you've got some orientation options as well. And down here is where you can put your specific prompts. So if you want to put in here some specific instructions around the style of infographic that you want, the pitch, who is it pitched at? You might want to include, give me a timeline, make sure you include the case citation, give me the dates, etc. So yeah, so you can put any prompts in here to help customize your infographic. Sometimes you also might want to give some instructions in here around, make sure you leave at least 30% white space between the graphics, because some infographics can tend to be quite cluttered. I'm just going to close that down and I'm just going to go straight over here. So I've got two examples here that I generated yesterday. Before I open that up, I'll just show you what's available in this ellipsis icon. So here I can rename my infographic, or I can download it as a PDF. I can share it, so maybe I might want to email it and so on, or you may want to delete it. Let's open up the first one. Here we go. Here's my first infographic. And what I like about this is that it is giving me a very high-level story of the full end-to-end process of the saga that this poor guy had to go through. So if we just start right at the beginning here, so Mallard, he's homeless and he's vulnerable. 1994, a vulnerable person is targeted. Police focused on Mallard, who was homeless and suffering a mental breakdown. So an unreliable confession is created. So there was video created at the police station of him confessing, but there were a number of reasons because of his mental illness as to why he actually made his confession. Anyway, so it goes on through down here. Evidence pointing to innocence is suppressed. So here I can see, right, okay, so the police actually suppressed evidence that actually pointed to Mallard's innocence. And down in here, evidence withheld versus what it showed. Okay, so down here it's giving a high-level summary of where there were issues with the evidence that was withheld and what was presented at court. And then what happened was, because some of this important evidence was suppressed, he was convicted of murder. And then we go up here, long road to justice. Initial court appeals fail. So the justice system's resistance to reopening cases, Mallard's first appeals were dismissed. So he actually went through that process twice, the poor guy. Investigation uncovers the truth. So a journalist and politician gained access to the prosecution files, revealing the suppressed evidence. So now we're in 2005, the High Court quashed the conviction and Mallard was released after 12 years in prison. All right, the real killer is identified. Cold case review later identified Simon Rockford as the murderer, definitively proving Mallard's innocence. All right, so this is its most simplistic level of covering a very long time period. But what it's done is it's really just given me a nice high-level scaffold of the story of what happened from Mallard from the beginning to when the so-called offence occurred, right through to being escalated and then released. Now, of course, it's missing a whole lot of other details, but I think as a starting point, I think this is a brilliant introduction to the story. All right, so that's one example. So let me close that down and we'll just have a look at another example of an infographic that was generated. And here we go. So this is providing similar information, but again, I asked it to leave a fair amount of spare space because I didn't want too much information in here. But again, it's just providing me an introduction of the journey that Mallard went through. All right, let's now have another look at a couple of other infographics, and I'm going to jump into this notebook here. So I'm based in Australia, and there's a lot happening, as we all know, around AI and AI governance all around the world. And I was trying to wrap my head around what is actually happening with the governance of AI in Australia around any legislation, policy development, etc. And so I started having a dig around, and there was just so much information. It was all a bit confusing. So I thought, no, I'm just going to use NotebookLM. So uploaded all of these artifacts, and I went over here and just clicked on Infographic. I'm going to open up my infographic, and here is what I thought was quite a helpful summary as to what the heck is happening with the governance of AI. Initially, our government here in Australia proposed that they were going to create a standalone piece of legislation on AI. So the government proposed mandatory safeguards for high-risk AI applications, similar to the EU's AI Act. So that was their original thinking. Then they pivoted, and so they decided to shift their approach. So a shift to innovation and existing laws. So rather than having one standalone AI piece of legislation, they're now thinking, all right, no, we're not going to do that. Let's rely on existing statutes. Enthusiasm for a new law cooled in favor of promoting productivity and using current frameworks. If we keep going, current approach, a multi-regulated model. AI is now governed through existing laws for privacy, consumer protection and online safety. So here in Australia, we have the Privacy Act 1988. So we've also got an ACL, so the Australian Consumer Law, and guidance for AI adoption. So a new national framework provides organisations with a practical blueprint for responsible AI governance. So I just wanted to share with you another example of how using an infographic, assessing and looking and analysing quite complex information and simplifying it right down into almost a story. So that concludes my video today. It's just a quick reminder to utilize methods like storytelling and visual infographics to help you in your learning. I'll see you next time.